Warning: extremely disturbing material is shown. Noah was angry with Tate. He wanted his ex-buddy to leave his home. Stop, Noah said sharply, voice cutting through the tension. You don't get to just come into my house and do whatever you want. Tate stopped, one hand still on the doorframe, watching him like he wasn't fully hearing the words. I told you, Tate said quietly, I didn't come here for drama. No, Noah snapped. You broke into my house at 2 in the morning and went through my fridge. That's no drama, that's insane. A beat of silence. Tate exhaled slowly like he was trying to pull himself back into control. You left your door unlocked. That doesn't make it okay. Another pause. The energy between them shifted, less chaotic now but heavier, more focused. Noah pointed toward the hallway. You need to leave. Tate didn't move right away. Instead, his eyes stayed on Noah's, something unsettled behind them now, jealousy still there, but tangled with something else he wasn't saying out loud. Tate smiled faintly as he stepped back toward the hallway, like the argument hadn't fully registered as final. Is Riley in our bed? Tate asked. Jealousy spread openly across his face as the muscles in his arms tensed beneath his jacket, while he stood in the middle of Noah's new living room like he didn't belong there and hated every second of it. Noah looked up from where he stood beside the kitchen island. That's none of your business, Tate. It's my bed, not our bed, because you never lived here after 1994, he snapped back instantly. The words hit harder than they should have. Mostly because they were true. Tate hadn't lived with Noah in almost 3 years. In this house. This beautiful, warm, painfully unfamiliar house with dark hardwood floors and soft yellow lighting and framed photographs, this was not his home. That realization alone made something ugly twist in his chest. 24 years together and suddenly I'm not allowed to ask questions, Tate said bitterly. Noah laughed once in disbelief. We were platonic bedmates, not lovers. You lost the right to ask those questions when you walked out of our green Rambler years ago. Tate's jaw tightened. The engagement ring Riley had bought for his fiancée caught the kitchen light as it rested on Noah's finger. Even though Noah had been the one to propose to Riley, Riley had wanted Noah to have a memento of the occasion. He had purchased a simple platinum band specifically for him, engraved with the date of their engagement. Noah glanced down at the ring, watching the light briefly dance across the polished metal. It was a small reminder of the moment they had promised themselves to each other. Tate noticed it immediately despite having seen it 100 times already. It still made him sick. Not because Noah was engaged, but because Noah was engaged to someone else. Someone gentle. Someone stable. Someone who apparently got to sleep beside Noah every night now. Tate looked toward the hallway unconsciously. Noah caught it immediately. Oh my gods, Noah muttered, already annoyed. Don't. Is he here? That's not your concern. Is he here? Noah crossed his arms. You don't get to storm into my house acting possessive. Your house, Tate repeated quietly. Noah instantly regretted the wording. But Tate had already heard it. Every syllable. The old green Rambler had always been ours. This house was Noah's now. And Riley's. Not Tate's. Tate looked around the living room again, slowly, taking in details he'd been too angry to notice when Noah opened the front door earlier. A folded blanket sat on the couch. 2 coffee mugs rested near the sink. A pair of men's shoes sat beside the entryway. Not Noah's. Riley's. Evidence. Proof. Tate swallowed hard. You moved on fast, he muttered. Noah stared at him. I moved on after you married Chloe. Still feels fast. You left almost 3 years ago. Noah didn't wait for anything else. He turned away, walking back toward his room, exhaustion finally catching up with him in heavy waves. Tate wasn't looking at him anymore. His eyes were already scanning the hallway, sharp and unsettled, like he expected to find something or someone lurking just out of sight. Jealousy had settled in his face so clearly it almost looked like panic. Does that homewrecker live here or just sleep over sometimes? Noah let out a short, disbelieving laugh. That's none of your business. That answer only made it worse. Tate stepped forward immediately, brushing past Noah with a firm but not aggressive push of his shoulder. Don't, Noah warned. But Tate was already moving. Fast. Focused. Too focused. He headed straight down the hallway like he knew the layout of the house even though he didn't. He'd never lived here, he'd never even visited properly until tonight. This was Noah's house. Noah and Riley's house. That thought should have stopped him. It didn't. Tate, Noah called after him, voice sharper now. What are you doing? Tate didn't answer. He reached the bedroom door and froze for half a second, just long enough for Noah to catch up. Then he shoved it open. The door hit the wall with a loud crack. Silence followed. Tate stood in the doorway, breathing hard, eyes already sweeping the room like a man expecting to catch something moving in the dark. The bed. The closet. The bathroom door. The corners. Every shadow became a threat. Noah stopped behind him, staring at the back of his head in disbelief. Are you serious right now? Tate ignored him completely and walked into the room. Straight to the bed. He grabbed the edge of the blanket and pulled it back sharply. Empty. He exhaled through his nose like that wasn't good enough. Then he checked again, slower this time, eyes narrowing, scanning the mattress like it might betray him. Noah rubbed his forehead. He's not here. Tate didn't respond. He moved to the bathroom next, flipping the light on. Empty. Shower curtain yanked aside. Empty. Cabinet opened. Nothing. Still not satisfied. Tate turned back into the bedroom and crossed to the closet. Tate, stop. Closet door slid open hard. Rows of clothes. Neat. Lived in. Two live sharing space. Tate's jaw tightened. He stepped inside the closet like he expected to find Riley hiding behind the jackets. Noah stared at him. You are literally searching my fiancé's closet for a man-shaped mystery. Tate ignored him. He checked behind hanging coats. Moved shoes. Even crouched slightly to look into the lower shelves. Nothing. Still nothing. His breathing was heavier now. Not calm. Not rational. Noah finally stepped into the room fully. He's at work, I told you that. Tate straightened slowly. You said it doesn't mean it's true. Noah blinked. What? Tate ran a hand through his hair, frustrated, like his own thoughts were moving too fast to catch. I just want to know where he is. Noah's voice hardened. Why? Tate looked at him, then really looked. And there it was. Honesty. Ugly, unfiltered honesty. Because I can't stand the idea of him being in here when I'm not looking. Silence. Noah didn't respond right away. That answer wasn't normal jealousy. It wasn't casual insecurity. It was something deeper. Something tangled. Noah exhaled slowly. Tate, he doesn't live here. He comes over 3 nights a week while I go there to his home 3 evenings every week. Tonight is the only night we sleep alone. Tate glanced around the room again, like the idea still didn't fully compute. I know. You don't act like you know. Tate's gaze dropped to the bed again. There was a faint indentation on one side of the pillows, a small crease in the sheets like someone had slept there recently. Tate stared at it too long. No one noticed. Tate. Tate spoke quietly, almost to himself. That used to be my side. Noah froze. Tate, no, you never lived here. Tate didn't argue. Didn't correct him. Just stood there, jaw tight, eyes fixed on the bed like it belonged to a different version of reality. Noah stepped closer. We've been buddies for 24 years, friends, not roommates, not partners. You've never had a side of my bed beyond platonic living. That finally got a reaction. Tate scoffed softly, but it sounded strained. Yeah, I know. But he didn't move away from the bed. Instead, he walked around it. Slow. Careful. Then suddenly dropped to one knee and looked underneath. Noah's eyes widened. Oh my, are you seriously checking under my bed? Tate ignored him. Looked deeper. Moved a box slightly. Checked again. Nothing. He stood back up, brushing dust off his hand like the floor itself had offended him. Noah stared at him. What exactly did you think you were going to find? Tate didn't answer immediately. Then quietly. I don't know. That honesty made Noah pause. Tate moved to the far side of the room next, checking behind the curtains. Then the corner. Then the door again. Like he couldn't trust what he wasn't actively looking at. Like the act of searching was the only thing keeping him grounded. Noah watched him for a long moment. "This is about Riley," he said finally. Tate didn't deny it. That was answer enough. Noah's voice softened slightly. "He's my fiancé, not a threat." Tate let out a short, humorless laugh. "That's not how it feels." Noah frowned. "Then how does it feel?" Tate stopped moving. For a second he didn't answer. Then, "Like I walked into a life I wasn't invited into." That landed heavier than anything else. Noah looked at him, really looked. Because this wasn't just jealousy over a man. It was disorientation. Loss of place. 24 years of familiarity suddenly rearranged into something Tate didn't know how to stand in anymore. Noah exhaled slowly. "You were invited into my life, you just don't live in every part of it." Tate's eyes flicked back to the bed. Then the closet. Then the framed engagement photo on the dresser. Riley and Noah smiling like none of this tension existed. Like Tate wasn't standing here unraveling over it. Tate spoke quietly again. "Does he know I exist like this?" Noah frowned. "Like what?" Tate hesitated. Then bluntly. "Like someone who still looks for you in every room you're in." Noah went still. The silence stretched. Because that was true. And it complicated everything. Noah looked away first. Tate didn't move. Didn't speak. Just stood in the middle of the bedroom. He had no right to be searching in the first place, suddenly very aware that the person he'd been looking for wasn't missing at all. He just belonged somewhere else now. "I'm done with this," Noah muttered to himself, pushing the bedroom door open. "I'm just done, please leave so I can go to bed." Noah barely made it to the bed before collapsing onto it, fully dressed, face half buried in the pillow. The house went quiet again. For a while there was nothing. No sound, no movement. Just silence pressing in from all sides. Noah's breathing slowed. Then, a creak. The kind of soft sound that didn't belong in a locked house. Noah's eyes opened instantly. He didn't move yet. Another sound closer this time. Footsteps. Slow. Familiar in a way that made his stomach tighten before his brain fully caught up. Before Noah could slip into slumberland, a hard, naked body laid down on the mattress and pulled Noah against his chest. Tate kissed Noah's temple as he snuggled against the blonde before falling asleep. Noah left in the middle of the night and drove to the Blue Warehouse on South Vermont Avenue. He loved this place especially when he was worn down or needed a moment to himself. Noah heard a dripping noise from the lights above his head. "Hey, Noah." I startled, the sound snapping through me like a wire pulled too tight. My head turned sharply to the left, toward the voice, toward where it had come from. And that's when I saw him. A black-haired, hazel-eyed boy stood a few feet away, just inside the dim edge of the light. 14, maybe, dark hair falling the way I remembered it used to before everything sharpened and changed. His posture was easy, almost familiar, like he belonged here in a way no one else ever could. Tate. But not the Tate I knew now. This version of him looked younger, untouched by the weight that came later. His expression held something lighter, something that didn't match the man I had spent so long trying to understand. He tilted his head slightly, studying me. "What are you doing in here?" he asked, his voice calm, almost curious. "I thought you hated cold, damp, dark places." I didn't answer. Couldn't. My pulse kicked harder, the lingering fear from the nightmare twisting into something sharper, more uncertain. I stared at him, trying to force the image to make sense, trying to ground it in something real. But nothing about it held. Noah didn't know if he was hallucinating or if he was still dreaming. As far as Noah knew, Tate had never been here. And yet there he was. Tate stepped closer and put his hand on my shoulder. The contact felt real, solid, warm, grounding in a way that made everything else feel less certain instead. "I miss you," Tate said. His voice was softer than I remembered, or maybe just younger, not weighed down yet, not sharpened into something that cut without warning, just him the way he used to be. "We used to be so close," Tate laughed. The thought passed between us before I could decide if I'd imagined it or if he had. "Was it my fault?" Tate asked quietly, his eyes searching mine, "or was it?" My throat tightened, but I found myself answering anyway. "Both of us, I think." I must have really been an ass if you've retreated to this hellhole. For a second, neither of us moved. Then I smiled, small, uncertain, but real. And Tate smiled back. It hit me harder than anything else so far, that smile, because it wasn't the one he wore now, the one that hid things. This one didn't feel like it was covering anything at all. Wake up, Noah, he said gently. The words didn't match the moment. You have to wake up and live in the real world. I stared at him, my chest tightening again, confusion bleeding into something heavier. The edges of the warehouse felt like they were shifting slightly, like the space itself didn't want to stay still. Did you ever like me? I asked. The question came out before I could stop it, pulled up from somewhere I had kept buried for too long. Or did you tell the cheerleaders and jocks at school what you really thought? I continued, my voice quieter now, and then lie to me when we were alone. Tate didn't look away. He didn't rush to answer either. He just stood there looking down at me like he had all the time in the world, like this question had been waiting just as long as I had. And then he smiled again. Not cruel. Kind. Just knowing. You ask me if I loved you in this warehouse of all places. I think you already know the real answer, he said. Something in my chest shifted at that, something that felt too close to the truth I'd been avoiding. He took a small step back, his hand slipping from my shoulder. Don't you remember what I told you in bed years ago? Tate added, his voice quieter now, almost like it was fatting with the space around him. The light above us flickered. His outline wavered, not disappearing, not fully but less certain. Love me, hate me, I care not why, I only want my heart to touch yours. The words lingered longer than he did. Why can't you just tell me? I said. The 14-year-old Tate laughed again, soft, almost sympathetic, like the question itself was something he'd heard too many times to take seriously anymore. Oh Noah, he murmured, even after all these years. His hand moved slowly from my shoulder to my cheek, the touch light enough that I couldn't tell if it was real or just the memory of one. It lingered there anyway, warm in a way that didn't match the cold air of the warehouse. You really don't know, he said. My throat tightened. You know, he added gently. You have to know, every time you thought I didn't care, I pulled away, I talked badly of you was to protect your life and my access to you. You always wanted to know the real Tate Blue. The name landed wrong in my chest, like it didn't belong fully in my world or his. And maybe that's the problem, he continued, quieter now. You've been trying to make him into something you can hold onto, something that makes sense. His gaze didn't move from mine as he spoke, like he was trying to press the words somewhere deeper than thought. Tate Blue, he added almost carefully, never existed the way you built him in your head. A pause lingered between us, heavy and unstable. I was always just playing a part, he said softly, and you were never meant to see behind it. The warehouse lights flickered again, weaker this time, like they were struggling to stay consistent. And you didn't notice, he finished, because you were already too close to believing it was real. My pulse hammered harder. The warehouse lights flickered overhead, just once like the space itself had blinked. Tate's hand lowered again, leaving my cheek, but the absence of it felt delayed, like it hadn't decided yet whether to go. You never met him, he said softly. Tate Blue was never what you thought he was. A pause. A facade, he added, almost like he was explaining something simple. A trick your mind kept running because it needed him to be real in a certain way. My breathing tightened. You've been chasing something built to disappear, he said. The air in the warehouse felt thinner now, like it was listening too closely. And you never knew him the way you believe you did. Another pause. His gaze stayed fixed on mine, steady in a way that made everything else feel less steady. Because everything you've been holding onto, he said quietly, only works if you don't look at it too directly. The silence stretched. Then, I don't have all the answers, Noah, he said. If I did, I wouldn't have needed you to be by my side. His voice dropped lower, urgency threading through it now. You have to wake up, he said again. You have to wake up before it's too late. Your whole life was not real, Noah, he said again, his voice steady in a way that didn't feel comforting at all. Nothing you saw your entire life was real. No one you saw was real or whom they pretended to be. Your life and Tate's is only pretend, but not what you both felt for each other. Not one word said in Tate's bed was a lie. The warehouse didn't answer him. It didn't react either. It just stayed there wide, dim, indifferent, like it had no opinion on what was being said inside it. But I did. Or at least something in me tried to. Because the words weren't just information anymore, they were pressure. Layered, repetitive pressure, like someone stacking the same idea over and over until it became hard to tell where it started or if it had ever been different. Nothing was what it seemed to be, he continued. Nothing said in front of you was real. Tate protected you each day by being cold, emotionless, and distant. I swallowed, but my throat felt too tight for it to matter. My body was still on the cold floor, still anchored in something physical, but my thoughts felt like they were slipping slightly out of alignment with it. Like I was here but not fully attached to here. Your body lying on this warehouse floor is the biggest form of irony within your relationship with Tate. The hallucination laughed, bending down level with Noah's height. The figure stood in front of me, older, 15, familiar, wrong in a way I couldn't fully define. Tate, or something shaped like him, or something my mind had decided was the easiest way to give form to whatever this was. His expression didn't change much as he watched me. Patient, focused. Almost like he was waiting for something to settle in properly. Tate Blue wasn't real, but the love that boy had for you was real. He wasn't supposed to love you, that's what they never saw coming all those years ago, he said again. The name felt heavier this time, not because it was louder, but because it didn't seem to belong to anything stable anymore. Like it had been pulled loose from whatever meaning it used to have and was now just sound. And you believed it, he added. A pause. The warehouse light flickered overhead again, longer this time. The space dipped into near darkness for a heartbeat, and in that brief absence of light everything felt less certain, edges, distance, even my own position in the room. Then it came back. But slightly wrong. Not changed enough to name. Just enough to notice. Wake up, he said again. The urgency was clearer now, but still controlled, like it had been building slowly and carefully instead of breaking all at once. Wake up before it's too late. Your very life depends on you not believing what you see or hear. Don't believe what you view with your own eyes, it's a magic trick. Don't believe anything people say about Tate. The only thing you saw that was real was what happened in Tate's bed between Noah and the boy who loves you. I tried to focus on him properly, tried to separate what I was seeing from what I was hearing, tried to sort presence from meaning, but every attempt felt like it dissolved a little on contact. Like thinking too hard about it made it less stable, not more. The cold floor under my hands reminded me I was still here. Still somewhere. But even that felt like information I had to actively trust rather than something automatic. Everything and everyone, he continued, softer now, and what they did, what those people told you was bullshit. It was a clever, insidious, illegal performance. The word hit again. Performance. It didn't feel like an explanation, it felt like a structure being offered in place of confusion, something complete enough to hold onto if I stopped questioning it too closely. But the problem was that everything inside me was questioning it too closely. Because if everything was performance, then there was nothing underneath it. And if there was nothing underneath it, then what was I standing on? My breathing shifted again, uneven but quieter now, like my body was trying to conserve itself rather than react. The figure took a small step closer. Not threatening. Not gentle either. Just closer. Tate never gaslit you, he was gaslighting himself. He reset the room to never face the reasons he can't speak of it out loud. Tate's stud persona was to erase any chance someone would see beneath the lies and know the truth of why Tate wishes he was never born. You gaslit Tate for years with your straight bullshit and hetero life. Tate's whole gaslighting facade hinged on you never revealing your gayness. Tate cannot love a gay man again, and your orientation would have destroyed every spiderweb that held together his house of cards he calls his life. You're stuck in it, he said, because you keep trying to make it mean something it doesn't. I stared at him, my mind catching on fragments instead of flow. Tate Blue. The warehouse. The feeling of presence that didn't match memory. The gaps between what I thought I knew and what I couldn't quite prove. Everything layered on top of everything else until it stopped forming a straight line. Tate's reasons for his hatred of gay men would have been exposed if you admitted at 18 you were queer and had feelings for him. You have to wake up, he said again, but this time it wasn't louder. It was more deliberate. Like he was repeating a pattern he expected me to recognize. Wake up before it's too late. The phrase lingered in the air longer than the rest of him did. Because now even the idea of too late didn't feel like time. It felt like a point of no return inside perception itself. And I still couldn't tell if I was being warned away from something or pushed toward it. Tate moved closer. I didn't have time to register it fully before I felt it, a brief, unreal touch against my lips. A kiss. Light, familiar in a way that didn't belong to the present moment, like it had been borrowed from somewhere else and placed here without permission. My breath caught immediately. The warehouse seemed to hold still with me. His face stayed close for a second longer than expected, his expression unreadable in that same unsettling calm. It's not real, Tate said softly. The words didn't feel like comfort. They felt like something being repeated, as if he was trying to convince me of something I couldn't fully see. Nothing's real, he added. A pause. His gaze didn't leave mine. Tell no one, he said quietly, Noah. My chest tightened. Trust no one, especially your friends or anyone you know. Tell no one what I've told you but Andrew or Tate, he continued, voice lower now, more intent. Andrew will help you. Tell the wrong person, anyone but those two men, and you could die. You've been living 24 years in a nightmare, a horror movie, and don't know it. Everything and everyone is an illusion. Talia's theories were wrong and your life is in danger. You've been in danger your whole life. You would have been dead decades ago if it wasn't for Tate loving you more than you could ever dare to image. The name landed strangely sharp, out of place in the dim warehouse air. Then he shook his head slightly, like correcting himself, like the moment itself was unstable. Tate Blue never existed, he said. The words pressed in harder than the rest. That boy you knew, he added, isn't Tate Blue. Tate Blue is dead and buried. Tate died on his second birthday in 1970, and that imposter you slept with for decades is what's left of the worst conspiracy in California history. I stared at him, my mind struggling to hold onto a single fixed interpretation of what was happening. The kiss still lingered as a sensation more than a meaning, something my body registered even while everything else resisted being certain. The warehouse lights flickered again overhead. Short. Uneven. Like the space itself was struggling to stay consistent. My thoughts tried to organize themselves but kept slipping at the edges. Because every statement collided with something else I remembered. Every certainty created another contradiction right beside it. And standing there in the dim light, I couldn't tell anymore whether I was being pulled toward truth or being pushed away from it. And as I sat there staring at the space where he had been, I couldn't tell if I had just been given an answer, or if I had finally stopped avoiding one. You asked so many questions during the years spent with Tate, but you never asked the right one, the ghost smiled. Why did Tate never let you go or never need to forgive you any time you did something wrong? Noah stood a few steps away from the warehouse wall, the building behind him settling back into its usual stillness as if nothing had happened inside it at all. This amazing love story you dreamed of with Tate was a losing game. The love story was never about you, Noah. You wanted a romance, but the love story happened behind your back. Tate can't love a man the way it comes so easy to you. You've never been almost killed by the love of your life and tried again with someone else. Wake up. Tate's hallucination begins to drip water. A puddle of water is on the warehouse floor as Noah watches. At first it looks like condensation from the ceiling, industrial cold meeting old metal, the predictable breath of abandoned space. But it doesn't behave like condensation. It gathers too deliberately, like rain from a shower, forming a widening circle beneath Tate's feet, as if the room has decided to leak meaning instead of water while the runoff escaped down the drain. Noah notices teenage Tate is not blinking. He doesn't remember choosing to stand still, but his body has settled into it like stillness is the only way to avoid breaking something further. The warehouse feels less like a place and more like a memory that refuses to admit it is unfinished. Tate is there again. A man in his 20s this time, Noah allows the fact to remain unchallenged, though something in him still resists the simplicity of numbing it. Tate is a boy on the floor of a place that doesn't know how to hold people gently. His outline is unstable, like the idea of him is being edited in real time by something impatient. Tate speaks while his body shakes, dripping water over the floor. You don't know if Tate ever loved you, Noah. Hopefully you never find out how much. The sentence lands wrong in Noah's chest, like it enters through a place that doesn't have language for impact. It doesn't feel like accusation anymore, it feels like exposure, as if something private has been placed under fluorescent light and told to remain there. Noah thinks absurdly that love should not sound like an autopsy. He tries to respond, but there is no clean entry point for speech. His thoughts are already too crowded, each one stepping on the last. He thinks, I was never inside it the way I thought I was always adjacent. I was always interpreting the edges of something that didn't require interpretation. The hallucination collapses. Not dramatically, not like a performance. It simply loses coherence, as if the idea of standing upright becomes optional and then immediately impossible. Tate falls to the ground, twitching and clawing at the floor of the warehouse. Noah moves forward without deciding to. The movement feels delayed, like his body received the command late. Each step is heavier than it should be, not because of resistance in the floor but because of resistance in meaning. He is walking toward something that does not agree it should be approached. Tate's cheek is against the warehouse floor. Tate is hysterical, terrified, afraid, and crying for his Noe to save him. Noe, help me please. The nickname Tate has for Noah hits the blonde harder than anything else. Noe. Not Noah as an identity, but Noe, a dear companion of Tate's, something softened, something reshaped by fear or need or collapse. It feels like being called from inside someone else's breaking point. Noah thinks, I don't know which version of me he's speaking to. I don't know if there are multiple versions or if I have simply never been singular. Tate's body shakes on the floor, his body and mouth begin to choke, gagging on air to breathe. The water around him spreads in uneven ripples, though nothing is touching it. Noah wonders if the warehouse is responding to emotion or if he is simply seeing patterns where there are none. He hates that he cannot tell the difference anymore. The pulling begins. Not visible at first, not physical in any recognizable sense. It starts as a shift in orientation, like gravity reconsidering its loyalty. Tate's body jerks backward slightly, as if the floor has exhaled him away from Noah. Noah reaches out. His hand closes on nothing. That absence feels colder than contact would have. He thinks, if I had been earlier, would it have mattered? If I had been different, would anything about this room have chosen to stay still? But the thoughts collapse as quickly as they form because none of them are testable. None of them can be answered in a place that is actively refusing the premise of answers. Tate is dragged across the floor. Slow at first, then faster, as if whatever is pulling him has decided hesitation is unnecessary. The water streaks beneath him, then fills in behind him, erasing evidence like the room is embarrassed by what it is allowing. Noe. Tate cries for help. Noah says his name. Tate. It comes out quieter than he intended. Then again louder, breaking. Tate. The warehouse door bangs shut as the sounds echoed around the damp room, scaring Noah. But names do not function like anchors here. Noah's thoughts fracture further as he watches. I wanted to be part of something that felt chosen. I wanted love to feel like arrival instead of subtraction. I wanted to be necessary in a story that was already complete without me. If I was never included, then what was I touching this entire time? He thinks, if love happened before me, around me, after me, then where was I when I thought I was inside it? Tate's body nears the edge of the warehouse where light fails to behave correctly. The outline of him begins to thin, like distance itself is becoming a substance that can consume shape. Noah saw a thin trickle of red blood oozing from beneath Tate's body. It slowly spread across the cold warehouse floor, curling around Tate's legs. Tate was completely naked, hunched tightly into a fetal position, his knees drawn toward his chest and his arms wrapped around himself as though he were desperately trying to disappear. Noah froze. Tate. There was no answer. He took a cautious step closer, his heart pounding as he tried to understand what he was seeing. The warehouse was eerily quiet except for Tate's uneven breathing. Tate, look at me. Tate barely moved. Noah's fear sharpened. Whatever had happened, Tate was no longer the sarcastic, defiant person everyone knew. He looked small and terrified, curled against the floor as though the world itself had become something he needed to hide from. Noah immediately dropped to his knees beside him. "I'm here," he whispered, "you're not alone." Tate finally lifted his head a fraction. His eyes met Noah's, and Noah could see the terror in them. Noah steps forward again. This time the warehouse responds. Not with sound. With certainty. Noe. Tate is screaming frantically before a dark tall shadow appears next to Tate's shaking, terrified form. Moments later, Tate's shadow vanishes. Not as disappearance but as removal, like something has decided the version of him Noah can perceive is no longer permitted. The floor is empty. The water remains, a pool of red blood slowly vanishes. The warehouse vanished. Noah blinked and the darkness around him transformed into something entirely different. A house. A wealthy, enormous house that Noah recognized almost immediately. Tate's house in New York City. The place Tate had lived when he was so young that he could barely remember it himself, before he was 4 years old. Noah slowly looked around. Birthday streamers hung from the walls. A few balloons rested against the furniture, their colors muted by the strange, dreamlike darkness. Above the dining table was a large number 2. Noah's stomach tightened. Tate's second birthday. The house was eerily quiet. There should have been laughter, adults talking, music, children running through the halls. Instead, there was nothing. Noah walked toward the staircase. He climbed slowly, each step creaking beneath his weight. The second floor passed in silence until he reached the stairs leading to the third level. Tate's bedroom. Noah remembered it. Or at least, he remembered being told about it. He reached the top and stopped in front of the bedroom door. The silence felt unnatural. Noah slowly reached for the doorknob. It turned beneath his hand. The door opened. Inside, the curtains were partially drawn, leaving the room dim. A small birthday hat sat crookedly on the head of a tiny child lying on his stomach across the bed. Tate. He couldn't have been more than 2 years old. Noah stepped inside. Tate. The little boy didn't respond. Noah moved closer. Hey, Tate. He smiled faintly, expecting to see an ordinary little boy enjoying his birthday. Then he saw Tate's face. Noah recoiled. The smile disappeared instantly. Something was profoundly wrong. Tate, the tiny 2-year-old, was still wearing his crooked party hat, but the expression on his face disturbed Noah more than anything else in the room. There was nothing childlike in his eyes. His face was completely blank, frozen, distant, almost impossibly still. His skin looked cold and pale and his tiny fingers had begun turning blue. He wasn't crying. He wasn't calling for anyone. He wasn't even moving. Noah instinctively moved closer. Tate. Nothing. The little boy appeared to be in shock. His body was rigid and strangely motionless as though he had become paralyzed by fear. His eyes remained fixed on something Noah couldn't see. It was the look of a child who had mentally disappeared from the room. Noah recognized something terrifying in it: dissociation. Whatever the 2-year-old had experienced was beyond his ability to process. His mind seemed to have retreated somewhere unreachable, leaving his tiny body behind. The birthday hat made the scene even more disturbing. It was supposed to be a happy day. There should have been candles, laughter, presents, and someone celebrating this little boy. Instead, Tate sat frozen on the bed as though the world had become too frightening for him to remain present in it. Noah's voice trembled. Tate, please look at me. The little boy didn't respond. Noah reached toward him but stopped before touching him. He suddenly understood that this wasn't simply a nightmare. He was looking at a memory, or perhaps a representation of one, that Tate had never been able to put into words. And the most heartbreaking part was that 2-year-old Tate didn't look like a child who was waiting for someone to rescue him. He looked like a child who had already stopped believing anyone would come. Noah suddenly remembered another dream from a few months earlier. In that one, Tate had been downstairs happily playing with his trains while Talia was out shopping. He had looked like an ordinary little boy, curious, energetic, completely absorbed in his toys. Everything had seemed normal. But now Noah remembered what came afterward. A few hours later, Tate had looked like this. Noah remembered hearing Terrence tell Talia that Tate had thrown a tantrum and that he had put him to bed early. At the time, it had sounded like an ordinary explanation for a difficult afternoon. Now, standing in the bedroom and looking at the expression on the 2-year-old's face, Noah knew something didn't fit. That wasn't the face of a child who had simply been disciplined for throwing a tantrum. A child who had been sent to bed for misbehaving might cry, pout, become angry, or eventually fall asleep. Tate looked completely disconnected. His eyes were distant, his body was rigid, his tiny hands remained motionless. Noah stared at him, his stomach turning. "That's not a tantrum," he whispered. The realization frightened him. Whatever had happened between the happy little boy playing with his trains and the silent child lying on the bed had been hidden behind Terrence's explanation. And suddenly, Noah understood why the dream had always felt wrong. Terrence's story explained what Tate supposedly did. It never explained what happened to Tate. The bedroom door suddenly opened. The little boy on the bed flinched so violently that Noah could see his entire body begin to shake. Tate's frightened eyes darted toward the doorway and instinct seemed to take over. He scrambled off the bed and tried to crawl underneath it, desperately attempting to make himself disappear. "Tate," Noah whispered, though he knew the child couldn't hear him. The light switched on. Noah's breath caught. Standing in the doorway was 12-year-old Uncle Joey. Joey looked around the room and then heard the tiny whimpering coming from beneath the bed. He walked toward it and pulled the blanket from Tate's little twin bed, exposing the space underneath. Tate pressed himself farther into the corner. Joey reached underneath and pulled the terrified toddler out. Tate immediately began screaming. Noah recoiled at the sound. The tiny boy fought desperately to get away, his cries echoing through the bedroom. His birthday hat had fallen sideways and the cheerful decorations around the room suddenly looked horribly out of place. "No," Noah shouted, even though he knew the people in the memory couldn't hear him. "Leave him alone." But the scene continued. Noah stood frozen, watching the memory unfold with growing horror. The little boy wasn't throwing a tantrum. He wasn't being difficult. He was terrified. And suddenly Noah understood why Tate had looked so completely disconnected afterward. Whatever had happened in that room had frightened a 2-year-old so badly that his mind had seemingly abandoned the moment just to survive it. Noah backed away, tears filling his eyes. He finally understood that Terrence's explanation had never accounted for the terror on Tate's face. There had been something else. Something nobody had told him. Tate kept thrashing and screaming as Joey leaned down and whispered something into his ear. "It's your Uncle Joey." The moment Tate heard those words, his screaming stopped. The change was so sudden that Noah felt a chill run through him. Tate's little body was still trembling violently, but the frantic struggle had ceased. He stared at Joey with wide, terrified eyes. From somewhere down the hallway, Talia's voice called out. "Joey, does Tate need help? Is he having a nightmare?" Joey immediately looked toward the bedroom door. "He's fine, Talia, I'm taking care of him, he's afraid of the dark, that's all." Noah stared at Joey. The explanation sounded harmless. But Noah knew what he'd just witnessed. Joey shut the bedroom door and locked it. He climbed onto the bed and pulled the trembling toddler onto his lap. Tate was shaking like a little frightened bunny, his tiny hands clenched against Joey's clothing. "It's okay," Joey whispered, "it's over." Joey rocked the little boy gently in his arms. Tate finally began to cry. Not the furious crying of a child throwing a tantrum. It was quiet, exhausted sobbing, the kind that seemed to come from somewhere much deeper than a frightened child should ever have to know. Noah stood helplessly across the room. The birthday decorations were still hanging on the walls. The number 2 was still above the table. And the terrible realization settled over Noah. Whatever had happened before Joey entered that room had been bad enough to make a 2-year-old completely shut down. Yet outside that locked bedroom, Talia believed her little boy was simply afraid of the dark. Noah watched as the little boy continued crying in Joey's arms. Tate's tiny face was wet with tears and his lower lip trembled as he finally found enough breath to speak. "Where were you?" Joey looked down at him. "I cried," Tate whispered. "I begged you to come, you never came." Joey pulled Tate closer onto his lap and rocked him gently back and forth. "I tried." Tate looked up at him, still crying. "You didn't come." "I tried," Joey repeated, his voice breaking slightly. "They wouldn't let me come upstairs, I tried." Tate buried his face against Joey's chest. Noah stood frozen nearby. The exchange was heartbreaking because of how young Tate sounded. He wasn't asking why someone had hurt him, he wasn't asking what had happened. He was asking why Joey hadn't come when he had begged him to. Joey continued rocking him. "I tried, Tate, I promise I tried." The little boy's crying gradually became quieter, but he still clung tightly to Joey. "I'm sorry," Joey whispered. He buried his face against the little boy's neck, his voice breaking. "I failed, I'm sorry." Tate whimpered and buried his face deeper into Joey's chest, trying to hide. Then came a knock at the bedroom door. Joey immediately looked up. "Who is it?" "It's Terrence." Joey's expression hardened. "Talia wants me to say good night." Tate began crying again, his tiny hands gripping Joey's shirt as he tried to hide his face. Joey looked toward the door. "No." Terrence knocked again. Joey reached for the ashtray on the nightstand and threw it toward the door. It struck the wood with a sharp crack. "Fuck off." Silence followed. Joey immediately turned his attention back to Tate. "It's okay," he whispered, pulling him closer. "He's gone." Tate continued crying against Joey's chest. Joey rocked him slowly. "I've got you." Noah stood across the room, stunned. The scene had become painfully clear to him. Joey was only 12 years old himself, yet he was trying to comfort a toddler who was terrified of an adult who should have been protecting both of them. Joey's voice broke again. "I should have gotten to you sooner." Tate clung tighter. Noah couldn't look away. "You can always sleep with me," Joey whispered. "I'll stay with you tonight." Tate clung to him, his tiny body still trembling. Then the bedroom door made a strange creaking sound. Joey's head snapped toward it. The door slowly opened. Terrence stood there holding a key. "What did I tell you about locking doors in this house?" he asked coldly. Joey immediately tightened his arms around Tate. Terrence glanced at the two boys and gave a faint, unsettling smile. "Well, isn't this sweet, you're spending time with your nephew." Joey didn't answer. "Get down the hall, Joey, and go to bed." Joey remained still. Terrence's expression hardened. "I want to talk to my son." Tate immediately pressed his face against Joey's chest. Joey looked down at him, then back toward Terrence. "He's scared." "I said I want to talk to my son." Joey's arms tightened protectively around the toddler. For a moment nobody moved. The bedroom suddenly felt impossibly small. Noah stood frozen in the corner, watching the scene unfold. He could see the fear in Tate's tiny body and the determination in Joey's face. Joey was only 12. But he understood one thing with absolute certainty. He didn't want to leave Tate alone with Terrence. Terrence made a sharp gesture with his head, silently ordering Joey to get out. Joey stared at him. Then, without warning, Joey climbed off the bed and kicked Terrence hard between the legs. Terrence doubled over, crying out in pain. Noah watched in shock as Joey moved between Terrence and the bed. The 12-year-old shoved Terrence backward, striking at him whenever Terrence tried to push past him. "Get away from him," Joey shouted. Terrence stumbled toward the doorway, but Joey continued forcing him backward until he was outside the bedroom. Joey slammed the door shut and immediately locked it. For several seconds he stood with his back pressed against the door, breathing heavily. Behind him Tate was crying. Joey turned around. The anger disappeared from his face almost instantly. He hurried back to the bed and gathered the trembling toddler into his arms. "It's okay," Joey whispered, "he's not coming in." Tate buried his face against Joey's chest. Joey held him tightly. "I've got you." Noah stood silently in the room, watching the 12-year-old try to protect a child who was far too young to understand why he needed protecting. And Noah finally understood why Joey had always been such an important figure in Tate's earliest memories. Joey hadn't been able to stop everything, But that night he had tried. Joey put the toddler back on his lap and sat against the headboard, gently running his fingers through Tate's hair. "It's okay, get some sleep." But Tate was too terrified to close his eyes. Every time his eyelids began to fall, he startled awake and looked toward the locked door. Tears continued slipping down his cheeks. Joey eventually lay down beside him and pulled the blanket over them. He began whispering a soft lullaby, repeating the same gentle words over and over. The room remained dark and quiet as the hours passed. Around 5 in the morning, Tate finally relaxed enough to fall asleep against Joey. For a few minutes, everything was still. Then Tate's small body suddenly began to jerk. Joey woke immediately. "Tate!" The toddler had begun having a seizure. Joey froze for only a moment before carefully moving anything dangerous away from him and calling for help. The peacefulness of the room disappeared instantly. Noah watched helplessly as Joey stayed beside Tate, frightened but refusing to leave him alone. "I'm here," Joey whispered. "I'm right here." And even though Joey was only 12 years old, he stayed beside Tate until help could arrive. 2 minutes later, Tate's jerking finally stopped as the seizure subsided. Joey immediately turned the toddler onto his side and placed a warm pillow beneath his head. Tate had vomited during the seizure and his tiny body continued shaking violently. "It's okay, Tate," Joey whispered, though his own voice trembled. Joey pulled blanket after blanket over his nephew, eventually covering him with at least 10 layers in an attempt to keep him warm. But something was wrong. Tate's skin felt frighteningly cold and his trembling wasn't stopping. His breathing was shallow and he seemed barely aware of what was happening around him. Joey realized with growing terror that Tate was going into shock. He held the toddler's tiny hand and kept talking to him. "Stay with me, buddy, please stay with me." Tate barely responded. Joey looked toward the locked door, suddenly realizing that he couldn't handle this alone. For the first time that night, the 12-year-old's protective determination gave way to fear. He needed an adult. He needed help. And he needed it now. Joey carefully positioned pillows beneath Tate's legs, trying to keep his limbs elevated while he pulled the trembling toddler close against him. He was desperately trying to keep Tate warm, using his own body heat while continuing to whisper reassurance. It's okay, Tate, I'm right here." The minutes seemed to crawl by. 20 minutes later, the blue tinge that had frightened Joey began to fade from Tate's skin. His breathing looked steadier and some of the tension slowly left his tiny body. Joey continued holding him. "It's okay," he whispered again, gently stroking Tate's hair. "You're okay." Tate remained exhausted and barely responsive, but he was no longer shaking as violently. Joey didn't move. He stayed beside his nephew, watching his face and listening to every breath. "I'm not leaving you," he whispered. For the first time since the nightmare had begun, Joey allowed himself to believe that Tate might actually be all right. "I know what happened," Joey whispered. "I went through the same thing, it's okay." Noah's chest tightened. "What happened? What did you go through, Joey?" He stared at the 12-year-old holding the trembling toddler and suddenly understood that Joey wasn't speaking like someone trying to comfort a child after an ordinary nightmare. He was speaking like someone who recognized the terror because he had lived through something similar himself. He knows. The realization frightened Noah. Joey knows what Tate is afraid of because Joey was afraid of it too. The toddler's tiny body continued shaking as Tate cried quietly. Joey gently stroked his hair, keeping him close. "Go to sleep, I'll watch over you." Noah swallowed hard. He's only 12. Joey was just a child himself, yet he was sitting there trying to protect someone even younger. Who was supposed to watch over Joey? That question hurt more than Noah expected. He looked at little Tate curled against Joey and imagined how confusing everything must have been for him, 2 years old, too young to understand what was happening. Too young to defend himself, too young to know why the people around him weren't keeping him safe. And he was terrified enough to hide under his own bed. Noah's eyes burned. How many times did this happen? How long did he carry this without understanding what it was? Joey continued rocking him. "I know what happened," he repeated softly. "You're safe now." Noah's heart broke. He wasn't safe then. The thought came instantly. He should have been. Then Noah blinked. The bedroom disappeared. The birthday decorations vanished. The little boy, Joey, the blankets, and the dim morning light were all gone. Noah was standing back in the warehouse. For several seconds, he didn't understand where he was. He looked around, breathing heavily. The nightmare was over. But the memory remained. Noah could still hear Joey's voice inside his head. I know what happened, I went through the same thing. Noah stared into the darkness. Was this why Tate always looked so frightened when he thought nobody could see him? He closed his eyes. That little boy wasn't throwing a tantrum. He remembered Terrence's explanation. He was trying to survive. Noah opened his eyes again. The warehouse was silent. But Noah no longer saw Tate simply as the difficult, sarcastic man everyone knew. He could still see the 2-year-old. A little boy wearing a birthday hat, trembling beneath a blanket, waiting for someone to tell him that he was safe. And Noah realized something that made his stomach twist. That child never stopped needing someone to say it. Noah breathes heavily in the warehouse where he spent last night. If I was never part of it, then why does it feel like I lost something I was never allowed to touch? And deeper underneath that, if love existed here, why does it only survive as absence when I try to look directly at it? The warehouse does not answer. It simply continues to be what it is, a place that remembers too much and explains nothing at all. It kept circling back to what Tate had said. Not in a clean, linear way, more like fragments that refused to stay in order. Wake up. Trust no one but Andrew and Tate. Tate Blue wasn't real. You've been living in a horror movie. Your life is a nightmare. Taya's theories were wrong. Each one hit differently when he tried to hold it on its own. Wake up felt like pressure, like urgency without a clear reason behind it, just the sensation that something was wrong and needed fixing immediately. Andrew stuck out more than the rest, a name dropped into chaos like it was supposed to mean something obvious. And then the hardest one to hold without his thoughts bending around it. Tate Blue died in 1970 when he was 2. Noah exhaled slowly, staring at the ground as if it might give him something solid to work with. That was the problem. Nothing felt solid anymore in the way it was supposed to. Even the memory of Tate in the warehouse didn't stay still when he tried to replay it. It shifted slightly every time he reached for it, like it didn't want to be examined too closely, like it existed just out of focus. Was it a dream? A hallucination? His subconscious? A memory mixing with something else? He didn't know which answer scared him more, the idea that it hadn't happened at all, or the idea that it had and didn't fit into anything he understood about his life. Noah ran a hand through his hair, still damp with sweat from earlier, and tried to slow his breathing. Think. He had to think. But thinking only made it worse, because every attempt to organize it brought up the same contradiction. It felt real. Not in a dramatic way, not in a sign or message way. Just undeniably present. The way Tate had looked at him. The way his voice had shifted between familiar and unfamiliar. The way the words didn't feel like they were coming from a performance, but from something that had been waiting too long to be said. And yet, the logic didn't hold. It couldn't hold. Noah looked back once at the warehouse. Dark, quiet, empty. Just a building again. No sign of anything that had just filled it a few minutes ago. His chest tightened slightly at the contradiction. Because if Tate was right about anything, if even one piece of it mattered, then Noah didn't just have missing information. He had missing context. Missing time. Missing certainty about what parts of his own life he could actually trust. And that thought didn't resolve into fear or clarity. It just stayed there. Unfinished. Like something his mind refused to close. The next morning after return to his Rambler, Noah woke slowly, caught somewhere between sleep and awareness. Something warm and heavy was pressed against him. A steady weight across his chest. Breathing against his neck. For one blissfully empty second, Noah thought maybe he was still dreaming. Then a nose brushed against his cheek. Noah's eyes snapped open. What the? Tate was naked, asleep on top of him. Actually asleep. One arm loosely wrapped around Noah's waist, his smiling face half buried against the blonde's shoulder like this was the most natural thing in the world. Noah stared at the ceiling in complete disbelief. Tate. No response. Tate. Still nothing. Noah shoved at him harder this time. Get off me. Tate made an annoyed sound but rolled slightly to the side. Not enough. Noah pushed again, finally managing to knock him halfway off. Tate opened one eye slowly, hair a complete mess, expression irritatingly peaceful. Then he smiled. You're warm, Tate mumbled. Noah sat upright immediately. Why are you still in my house? Tate shut one eye again like he planned on going back to sleep. I got cold. That is not my problem. You've always been warm, Tate replied lazily. Noah stared at him in disbelief. Noah grabbed the nearest blanket and threw it directly at Tate's face. Leave. Tate pulled the blanket down just enough to look at him again. You're mean in the mornings. And you're insane all the time. That actually made Tate laugh quietly. Noah got out of bed before he could say anything else, dragging a hand through his hair as he stormed toward the kitchen. He could still hear Tate moving around in the bedroom behind him, completely unbothered. Unbelievable, Noah muttered under his breath. The kitchen was cold compared to the bedroom. Noah immediately started making breakfast purely to avoid thinking about the fact that Tate Blue had somehow spent the night in his bed without permission and acted like he was the inconvenience. Coffee first. Then toast. Then eggs. He was halfway through eating when Tate finally wandered into the kitchen. Barefoot. Still half asleep. Still acting like he lived there. Noah didn't even look up. You're still here. Tate opened the fridge. You have a terrible lack of groceries in this house. You weren't invited to review them. Tate grabbed some orange juice anyway. You buy food like a divorced father. Noah took a long sip of coffee instead of responding. Tate leaned against the counter, watching him quietly for a moment, then looked down toward his own pants. I have a morning stiffy, Tate smirked. He loved making Noah uncomfortable. Noah blushed. Tate pulled a $50 bill from his wallet and placed it on Noah's dining room table while the blonde continued eating his breakfast. This is for any food I took in the last week. Even though you're a millionaire and can afford it, I don't want you saying I'm mooching. Noah glanced down at the bill, then back at Tate. I never said you were mooching. I know, I'm just getting ahead of the accusation. Tate leaned back with a smirk. I have more money if you want to give me a performance. Noah shook his head, cutting into his eggs. I'm not giving you a strip tease, Tate. It's 9 in the morning, it's too early for any shenanigans. Tate grinned. Fine, I'll wait until after breakfast. No. You didn't even let me finish. I know you. Tate laughed and picked up his coffee. Worth a shot. Noah carried his dirty dishes to the sink, washed them, and carefully placed them in a safe spot to dry by dinner. When he turned around, Tate was standing nearby, looking entirely too pleased with himself, like a satisfied toddler who had just gotten away with something. I have a problem, Tate announced, and I need you to help me with it. The mischievous smile on his face immediately made Noah suspicious. Noah sighed. Tate, it's too early, take care of your own problems. Tate's smile widened. I haven't even told you what the problem is. I don't need to know. You might. No. Tate folded his arms, pretending to look offended. You're not even curious. No, especially not with that expression. Tate glanced at the clock and then back at Noah. Fine, I'll come back later. Please do. Tate walked away, still grinning. Noah shook his head. Unbelievable. Tate smiled, then casually asked Noah a question. Do you want to go for a drive? Noah looked up slowly. Why would I want to do that? Tate shrugged. Because you like driving with me. No, Noah corrected immediately. I used to. That answer lingered longer than either of them wanted. Tate's expression shifted slightly, though he covered it quickly. We said we'd avoid each other, Noah continued, calmer now but firmer. Remember, I thought we agreed we were done being friends. Tate drank from the orange juice container directly. Noah pointed instantly. Don't drink out of the carton. Tate ignored him completely. I never agreed to stop talking to you, Tate said. Yes, you did. No, Tate replied. You said it, I just didn't argue. That counts. Not really. Noah let out a sharp breath through his nose. This is exactly the problem with you. Tate tilted his head. What is? You act like rules don't apply if you personally don't like them. Tate considered that for a second. Sometimes they don't. That is the most billionaire sentence you've ever said. A faint smile tugged at Tate's mouth again. Noah hated that smile. Mostly because part of him still reacted to it automatically. He focused aggressively on his breakfast instead. Tate walked closer, stopping near the table. You're really serious about Riley? He asked quietly. Noah didn't answer immediately. Yes. Tate's jaw shifted slightly. He boringly makes you breakfast every morning too. Noah rolled his eyes. You are literally standing in my kitchen criticizing my eggs after sleeping on top of me like a weighted blanket. That's not a no. Noah pointed his fork at him. You don't get to interrogate me. I'm not interrogating you. You absolutely are. Tate leaned against the counter beside him now. Close enough that Noah could feel his presence without touching him. The silence stretched. Then Tate spoke again, softer this time. You really want me out of your life? That question landed differently. Not teasing. Not sarcastic. Real. Noah stared down at his plate for a moment before answering. I want peace. Tate watched him carefully. That wasn't my question. Noah finally looked up. You make everything complicated, he said quietly. Tate didn't deny it. Because they both knew it was true. Noah stood up abruptly, carrying his plate to the sink. I'm getting married. Tate's expression darkened almost instantly at the word. You keep saying that like you're trying to convince yourself. Noah turned around sharply. No, I'm saying it because it's happening. Tate looked away for a brief second, jaw tight again. Then after a pause. Do you love him? The kitchen went completely still. Noah swallowed once before answering. Noah said, yes, I heard you annulled your marriage to Chloe. I'm sorry to hear it didn't work out, but I can't say I didn't see it coming. I hope you're nice to her. Chloe was a goddess and you did not deserve her. I hope you don't write her off even though you're not her husband anymore. You should make an effort to at least remember her on her birthday. That woman put up with a lot of crap being married to you. Maybe she'll have a happier life meeting a guy who actually wants to make an effort. She needs a guy who meets her emotional needs. I expect, Noah said dryly, that she'll meet the second Mrs. Tate Blue in the next year and then we'll all have to endure that hell. Tate stared at him for a moment. You really think I'm going to get married again that quickly? Noah shrugged. With your track record, I wouldn't rule it out. I already feel bad for the next woman that unfortunately believes you're going to be her knight in shining armor. What a joke. Tate rolled his eyes. You're incredibly supportive. I'm realistic. That's what people say when they're being insulting. Noah smiled. Then consider me very realistic. Tate looked back at him immediately. Like he was trying to figure out if Noah meant it. Like he wanted to catch hesitation. But Noah didn't give him any. Even if something about the question made his chest ache in a way he didn't want to examine. Tate eventually exhaled slowly. Then quieter. Okay. Noah blinked slightly. Because acceptance was not the response he expected. Tate's expression hardened. I'm not happy, Tate said, with how little support you gave Chloe while I was married to her. Noah looked up at him, but Tate continued. She tried to make an effort. She wanted to be a friend of yours. Now you could have been more welcoming. You could have been there for her. You could have invited her to Sunday dinner and supported her. The poor woman was going through things she had no clue about. Noah shook his head. I don't owe you or her anything, Tate. I'm not even a member of your family, and I don't need to remind you why. Tate went quiet. I'm not talking about my romantic feelings, Noah continued. I'm talking about how you treated our platonic relationship. If I had abandoned you like that and was getting married, you would have made a scene at my wedding. Don't lie to me and say you would have accepted it. You would not. You never would have let me do that to you. Noah's voice became firmer. You would have been petty. You would have gotten revenge. You would have made sure everyone knew how terribly I had treated you. But that's not what happened. You left me. Tate looked away. I didn't have to attend your wedding. You had no hold over me. I didn't owe you anything unless a slap was in order. I didn't care what your family thought about me not showing up. I didn't care that it hurt you or that it hurt Chloe's feelings. You never gave a damn about my feelings, so I matched your energy. Tate's jaw tightened. All that therapy taught me is that when someone shows no respect for you, you leave. I'm not going to apologize for how I survived your gross behavior. Noah paused before adding, and honestly I think Chloe's better off where she is now. She doesn't have to put up with a man who doesn't have the emotional or verbal capability or the respect to tell his buddy of 22 years that he wants to leave. Tate swallowed. Honestly, you abandoning her is just a repeat of what you did to me, Noah said, but at least she got paperwork from you. He looked directly at Tate. I didn't get a damn thing. Noah turned his back to Tate, his voice tight with years of anger. Everyone in LA knew you abandoned me. You humiliated me. My friends didn't know what to say to me for 6 months because they were afraid whatever they said would make the situation worse. Susie told me that a year after you married Chloe, when you were on your honeymoon, you weren't mentioned at all because they didn't know how to process what you had done. You haven't even apologized, and don't say, I'm sorry Noah, I made a mistake. That's not an apology. Tate opened his mouth, but Noah continued. Do you honestly think that whenever you say, leave Riley, Noah, because I want you, that makes any difference to me? I'm not leaving my fiancé for the man who left me a money order, a check on a refrigerator so he could pay me off. That was guilt. That was your conscience. Noah finally turned around. You used the money of your uncle, the man who loved me, to smooth over the fact that you were just gone in the middle of the night. You didn't call me for a year. Do you know what you did the first time we connected? You threw me to the hallway floor because you thought I was a burglar. That's what you did. Tate's expression fell. You treated me like garbage, which is ironic because the only thing you left in the house after you moved out was garbage bags in the living room. You expected me to take out your garbage, and then you fucking invited me to your wedding so you could parade your replacement in front of me like I didn't have feelings. Noah's voice cracked, but he didn't stop. I didn't attend your wedding because you hurt my romantic feelings. I had no romantic feelings by then. You killed that. You killed any desire I had for wanting anything platonic with you, too. He stared at Tate. When I look at you, I don't look at Tate Blue like there's my buddy from childhood. I think there's the man who escaped in the middle of the night and didn't see me for a year. Noah shook his head. And then you woke up one day and realized, wow, the man I left in the middle of the night really does have a nice-looking body. And since I haven't completely ruined his life, I'm going to do that now that he's finally engaged and happy. The room fell silent. Noah's expression hardened. That isn't love, Tate, it isn't friendship, and it isn't an apology, it's control. When people remember their 18th birthday, Tate, Noah said, it's supposed to be one of the best memories of their lives, becoming an adult, celebrating with the people they love. But that's not what I remember. I remember you being selfish. And ironically, you didn't know about it for 9 years. You couldn't see it because you were so self-absorbed. Noah turned toward him. And any chance you think I have of breaking up with Riley and moving in with you doesn't exist. I would never lower myself. I would never start a life with somebody who abandoned me. I have pride, Tate. I'd rather be alone or dead than be your partner or your boyfriend. Tate stared at him. I will not be one of those pathetic, lack of self-confidence women who takes back a cheating boyfriend or a husband who vanished to hook up with their mistress. I will never be the man who's so desperate that he forgives someone who betrayed him. There is no chance. You live in a delusional world if you think I'm going to give you a second chance. Noah's voice softened for just a moment. I never should have given you the first chance, but some of it's my fault. I never should have looked at you like you were a reliable, empathetic, selfless person who could be relied on to maybe return feelings you didn't have. Noah stopped talking. Noah fell silent. He looked down at the floor as though there were something else he desperately wanted to say, but he stopped himself. Then he looked back at Tate. You're selfish, Tate, and I don't find selfishness and hedonistic, promiscuous behavior attractive. Tate's expression tightened. You can disrespect your father all you want. You can pee all over his legacy and take revenge for whatever petty slight he gave you, but don't you dare treat your uncles and your father like they're nothing. Don't treat them the way you treated me. Noah gestured toward Tate. And you can take all the toys, all of the vacations. All of the nights you whispered things in my ear that you completely abandoned and forgot about in 1994, and you can shove it up your butt and get out. Tate stood there silently. Noah turned away from him. This time he didn't take back a single word. Tate looked at Noah as though the entire argument had somehow passed straight over him. Take a drive with me, Tate said. An angry huff escaped Noah's throat. Leave, Tate, you've done enough damage, just get out of my life and take your $50 with you. I don't want your money, it's not going to fix anything and it certainly isn't going to make me forget who you are. Tate didn't answer. Instead, he stepped closer and wrapped his arms around Noah from behind. Noah immediately stiffened. Take a drive with me, Tate repeated quietly. No. Noah tried to pull away, but Tate kept his arms around him for another moment. Tate let go. Tate finally loosened his grip. Noah turned around, his expression furious. You don't get to ignore everything I just said and then hug me like none of it happened. Tate's face fell slightly. I just want to talk. You've had years to talk. I know. No, you don't, Noah shook his head. You don't get to decide when I'm ready to listen to you anymore. Tate looked toward the floor. Please. Noah stared at him for several seconds. Why do you want me to take a drive with you so badly? Tate hesitated. Because there's something I need to show you. Noah's expression remained guarded. Then say it here. Tate swallowed. I can't. Noah sighed. Of course you can't. He turned away again. Tate, I'm not getting into a car with you just because you suddenly decided you want my attention. But Tate's face had gone unreadable again. He pushed away from the counter and walked toward the doorway. Noah frowned. Where are you going? Tate glanced back once. You said you wanted me to leave. Another silence. Then Noah folded his arms tightly. I do. Tate nodded once. But before leaving the kitchen he added. You still never answered my question about the drive. Noah stared at him in disbelief. You are unbelievable. That got the faintest smirk out of Tate again. I'll take that as a maybe, he said quietly. Noah stepped out of the house with his keys in one hand and coffee in the other, already exhausted before the day had even properly started. And there was Tate, waiting beside the passenger door of a red pickup like he had nowhere else on earth to be. Noah stopped dead on the walkway. You have got to be kidding me. Tate looked up from where he'd been leaning against the car. Good morning. No, Noah said immediately. Absolutely not. Don't good morning me after sleeping in my bed like a raccoon that learned how to trespass. Tate smiled faintly. You're dramatic before noon. I thought you left. You broke into my house last night. You left the door unlocked. I took that as a hint you wanted me in your bed, Noah. That defense stops working after the 10th time. Tate opened the passenger door for him anyway. Take a drive with me. Noah stared at him like he'd lost his mind. Don't you have somewhere to be? Noah asked. Meetings, business operations, secret billionaire rituals. Tate shook his head once. Not today. That's terrifying. Tate ignored that. Come with me. Noah narrowed his eyes immediately. Why? I have something I want to show you. That sentence has literally never ended well for me. Tate's mouth twitched slightly. Noah pointed at him accusingly. And if this turns into another proposal, I swear to God, Tate, I cannot do this again. Tate's expression softened just slightly at that. I'm not going to propose marriage. I might propose a sex act or your mouth going down on me, Tate said lewdly. Noah folded his arms tightly. Gross, Tate. A pause. Then Tate added, I just thought you might want to see a place that matters to me. That caught Noah off guard more than he expected. Enough that he looked away for a second before recovering. Tate, Noah said tiredly, I'm done with this. With what? With us. The faint amusement disappeared from Tate's face instantly. Noah kept going before he could stop himself. There's no us anymore, he said firmly. There hasn't been for a while and you need to accept that. Tate didn't respond. Didn't interrupt. Which somehow made it harder. Noah exhaled sharply and continued anyway. You need to move on, find somebody else, find someone who actually wants the same things you do. Tate's eyes stayed fixed on him. I'm serious, Noah said. In a year or two you'll probably find some nice wife, settle down and realize this whole thing was just. He stopped himself. Tate tilted his head slightly. Just what? Noah looked away. Madness, he muttered. Silence. A long one. The morning air suddenly felt colder than it had a second earlier. Tate stared at him carefully now. So that's what you think this was. Noah swallowed once. I think you got attached to an idea that's safe instead of steady. Tate let out a quiet breath through his nose, almost a laugh but without humor. An idea. Yes. You think I spent years of my life obsessed with an idea. Noah tightened his grip on the coffee cup. I think you got lost in something intense and unhealthy and now neither of us knows how to end it correctly. Tate's jaw shifted. But Noah kept talking because if he stopped now, he wasn't sure he'd start again. We move on, Noah said. That's what adults do. Eventually, the only time we'll see each other will be Sunday dinners or family events where we politely ignore each other and ask other people questions instead. Tate stared at him in complete silence. Noah tried to force a laugh, but it came out hollow. You'll ask somebody about stocks or politics, he continued quietly. I'll ask someone to pass the potatoes. We'll avoid eye contact like civilized people. Still nothing from Tate. That somehow hurt worse than if he'd argued. Noah looked down at the driveway. I'm serious, he said softly now. You have to let me go. The silence stretched so long Noah almost thought Tate wouldn't answer at all. Then finally, get in the car. Noah blinked. What? Take one drive with me. Tate. One drive, Tate repeated calmly. That's all I'm asking. Noah rubbed his forehead hard. You are impossible. I know. You don't listen, Tate. I'm listening right now. No, you're waiting for me to change my mind. That made Tate go still for half a second. Because it was true. Noah saw it immediately in his face. You always do that, Noah said quietly. You hear what you want to hear. Tate stepped closer then, not aggressively, not trying to corner him, just close enough that Noah had to look at him directly. What if I hear everything you're saying, Tate asked quietly, and I still don't want it to end? That landed somewhere dangerous in Noah's chest. He looked away immediately. You don't get a choice. Tate's voice lowered further, neither do you. Noah laughed once under his breath in disbelief. See, this is exactly why this doesn't work. Why? Because you make everything feel enormous. Tate held his gaze steadily. Maybe it is enormous. No, Noah snapped, it's exhausting. That finally hit. Noah saw it. A flicker across Tate's face, brief, controlled but real. Hurt. And immediately Noah regretted saying it. Which annoyed him even more. He exhaled hard. Look, I just want peace. Tate looked at him for a long moment. Then quietly. So do I. Noah shook his head. No, you don't. Tate almost smiled again at that, but there was no amusement in it. You know what the worst part about you is? Tate asked softly. Noah frowned. I'm afraid to ask. You genuinely believe I'll wake up one day and stop loving you because it's inconvenient. The words hit harder than Noah expected. He immediately looked away again. That's not what I said. It's exactly what you said. Noah stayed silent. Cars passed somewhere down the street. A dog barked in the distance. Morning sunlight spilled across the driveway like the universe was trying way too hard to make the moment look softer than it felt. Tate opened the passenger door again. One drive, he repeated. Noah stared at the open door like it personally offended him. This is manipulative. Probably. You admit that way too easily. You've always known exactly what I am. Noah groaned quietly. That is such a terrible sentence. A faint smile finally appeared again on Tate's face. And against Noah's better judgment, against literally every logical thought in his head, part of him still softened seeing it. Which was the entire problem. Noah closed his eyes briefly. Then finally muttered. Fine. Tate's eyebrows lifted slightly. But, Noah added immediately, pointing at him, if I never have to do this again after today, I'll survive one drive. Tate nodded once. Deal. Noah narrowed his eyes. You're lying. Probably, Tate admitted. Noah groaned again and climbed into the passenger seat anyway. Noah slid into the passenger seat of Tate's old red pickup with the expression of someone boarding a plane he already regretted. The truck smelled faintly like cedar, leather, gasoline, and Tate himself, clean cologne mixed with something darker and warmer Noah had unfortunately memorized years ago. You still drive this thing? Noah asked, mostly to distract himself. Tate shut the driver's side door. You used to like this truck. I used to be 16. You still like it? No, I don't. Tate glanced at him once, unconvinced. Noah immediately looked out the window instead. The inside of the truck was quieter than Noah remembered. Sunlight cut through the windshield, warming the dashboard in soft gold. There were tiny scratches near the ignition from years of keys hitting metal. A faded parking sticker still clung to one corner of the glass. Too familiar. That was the problem with Tate. Everything around him felt familiar in ways Noah didn't want anymore. Noah reached automatically for the seatbelt. But before his fingers could grab it, Tate leaned across him. Close. Far too close. Noah froze instantly. Tate's arm crossed over Noah's chest as he grabbed the belt from the side. His shoulder brushed Noah's shoulder, chest pressing briefly against his as he pulled the strap across Noah's body. The contact lasted maybe 2 seconds. 3 at most. But Noah felt it everywhere. Heat. Electricity. That awful immediate awareness his body still had around Tate no matter how much he hated it. Noah sucked in a breath quietly as Tate pulled the belt lower across his waist. The scent of him hit harder this close. Warm skin soap, faint cologne, morning air. Tate fastened the buckle with a click. Then his hand smoothed once across the belt near Noah's waist absent-mindedly, like checking it sat correctly. You ready? Tate asked casually. Noah stared at him. You did not need to do that. Tate blinked once. Do what? Fasten my seatbelt. Yes, I did. No, you absolutely did not. Tate leaned back into his own seat slowly, looking entirely too calm. I'm responsible for you while you're in my car. Noah let out a disbelieving laugh. That is not how passengers work. That's how you work. Noah opened his mouth to argue. Then immediately shut it again because Tate was watching him too closely now. Like he'd noticed something. Which was horrifying because Noah had, unfortunately, developed a very real problem in his pants in approximately 30 seconds flat. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Noah immediately grabbed his coffee cup and held it in his lap with the dignity of a man trying not to die. Tate started the truck. You okay? Yes, Noah said too quickly. Tate glanced sideways at him. You sound angry. I am angry. About the seatbelt. Yes. That seems dramatic. Noah looked out the window aggressively. You're dramatic. That's true. Silence settled between them as Tate pulled out onto the street. Noah kept his coffee strategically positioned and prayed Tate would focus on driving instead of noticing literally anything else. Unfortunately, Tate had always been observant when it came to Noah. A few minutes passed before Tate spoke again. You're quiet. I'm thinking. That's dangerous. Noah shot him a glare. You are unbelievably irritating before 10 in the morning. Tate smiled faintly, eyes still on the road. You like talking to me in the mornings. No, I don't. You used to. Noah exhaled sharply through his nose. Everything with you comes back to the past. Tate was quiet for a moment after that. Then softer. That's because you're still there. The words landed heavily enough that Noah looked over before he could stop himself. Tate kept driving, one hand loose on the wheel, expression calmer now. Noah hated how effortlessly attractive he looked doing absolutely nothing. It was deeply unfair. You know what your problem is, Noah muttered. Tate glanced at him briefly. Several things come to mind. You think history means ownership. Tate's expression shifted slightly. No, he said quietly, I think history means something. Noah looked away again immediately. Outside, Los Angeles rolled past in flashes of morning traffic and sunlight, palm trees blurred against glass storefronts, people walked dogs, cyclists crossed intersections. Normal life. Meanwhile, Noah was trapped in emotional warfare inside a red pickup. Tate adjusted his grip on the steering wheel. You're nervous. No, I'm not. You're holding that coffee like it owes you money. Noah looked down. Unfortunately, Tate was correct. He repositioned the cup immediately. I'm fine. Tate's mouth twitched again like he was trying not to smile. That made Noah suspicious instantly. What? Nothing. Tate. You're blushing. Noah nearly choked. I am not blushing. You are little. No, I'm not. You get pink around your ears. Noah slapped a hand against the side of his head automatically. Tate laughed quietly. Oh my God, Noah muttered, I hate you. No, you don't. The answer came too fast. Too certain. And somehow that was worse. Noah stared out the windshield again, trying to regain control of literally anything about this situation. This drive better be worth it, he muttered. Tate nodded once. It will be. You said that last time before I ended up in Arizona for 16 hours. You liked Arizona. I got heatstroke. You still liked it. Noah folded his arms tightly. You remember everything. Tate was quiet for a second. Then, only the important things. That shut Noah up completely. The truck fell silent again after that, but not comfortably. The kind of silence that hummed. Every small movement suddenly felt noticeable. Tate's hand shifting gears. Noah adjusting in his seat. The low sound of the engine. The warmth inside the truck. And underneath all of it, the dangerous awareness Noah had spent months trying to bury resurfacing little by little every time Tate looked at him. Which was exactly why this drive was a terrible idea. The drive went on much longer than Noah expected. At first he assumed Tate was just aimlessly circling downtown trying to annoy him into conversation, but eventually the city began changing around them. The tall buildings disappeared first. Then the crowded streets. Then the expensive cafes and polished storefronts gave way to quieter roads, industrial blocks, old chain-link fences, and stretches of warehouses baked under the California sun. Noah leaned against the passenger door with his coffee balanced on his knee, watching the scenery shift while Tate drove in silence beside him. It was a beautiful day outside. Clear sky. Warm sunlight. The kind of perfect Los Angeles morning people wrote songs about. Which only made Noah more irritated. Because exactly 1 week from today, he was supposed to be getting married. A week. 7 days. He should have been downtown tasting cupcakes and arguing about frosting colors with Anna and Riley. Instead, he was trapped in a slightly smelly red pickup truck with Tate Blue driving them in the complete opposite direction of civilization. Noah sighed heavily. You know, he muttered, most people do normal things before weddings. Tate kept one hand on the wheel. This is normal. No, it isn't. It is for us. That's the problem. Tate smiled faintly at the windshield. Noah narrowed his eyes. You're enjoying this. You're here, aren't you? That's not an answer. It kind of is. Noah groaned quietly and looked back out the window. The truck rumbled along another long stretch of road. 30 minutes. Maybe more. Long enough that Noah started getting genuinely suspicious. Tate. Where are we going? You'll see. That's a serial killer answer. You say that every time. Because every time sounds like a crime documentary. Tate laughed softly under his breath. Noah hated how much he liked that sound. The truck eventually slowed near a fenced industrial lot on the edge of the west side. Large orange buildings stretched across the property with rows of garage-style doors lining them. Storage units. Noah blinked. Then frowned deeply. Tate. Tate parked the truck. Noah stared out the windshield at the massive storage facility in complete confusion. What is this place? Tate shut off the engine. Storage facility. No, I got that part. Noah turned toward him slowly. Why are we at a storage facility? Tate unbuckled his seatbelt casually. Storage units. That did not answer my question at all. I know this place. Noah said quietly. Tate flinched at the word abandoned before Noah even finished the thought. After you left and abandoned me, I moved all of the garbage that reminded me of you into a storage unit around here. I haven't been back since 1994. It's been a few years. Noah looked around the deserted parking lot, recognizing pieces of the neighborhood despite how much time had passed. He turned toward Tate. Why are we here? Tate kept his hands on the steering wheel. For several seconds he said nothing. Noah's patience began to wear thin. Tate looked over at him finally, sunlight catching across his face through the windshield. Noah immediately hated how attractive he looked in terrible lighting. "You'll understand in a minute," Tate said. Noah folded his arms. "Are you secretly bankrupt?" Tate snorted softly. "No. Are you hiding bodies in there?" "Only emotionally." "That's somehow worse." Tate opened the driver's side door. Noah stayed perfectly still in the passenger seat. "Tate. What?" "You brought me to industrial murder garages. They're storage units." "That's exactly what a murderer would call them." Tate leaned against the open truck door and looked at him patiently. "Get out." Noah stared at him suspiciously. "Are you going to put me in one so I don't get married?" Tate actually laughed at that. A real laugh this time. Low and warm and immediate. "Noah," he said, shaking his head slightly, "don't be ridiculous. That is not reassuring. I'm not going to hold you against your will." Noah narrowed his eyes harder. Tate's mouth curved slightly. "Unless it's during a mutual kiss." Noah's face heated instantly. "Oh my God." Tate looked entirely too pleased with himself. "You're impossible," Noah muttered. "And yet you got in the truck. That was temporary insanity." "Probably." Noah pointed at him accusingly. "See, you admit things way too casually." Tate only smiled again, which made Noah even more suspicious. "Why are we here?" Noah asked again. Tate's expression softened slightly this time. "Because there's something I want you to see." That answer landed differently than the teasing had. Noah looked at him more carefully now. The joking edge had faded from Tate's face. Whatever this was, it mattered to him. And that realization unsettled Noah more than the storage facility itself. He glanced back toward the rows of units. "This better not be weird." Tate considered that honestly for a second. "It's probably a little weird." Noah groaned loudly. "Fantastic." Tate stepped away from the truck. "Come on." Noah didn't move. "Tate. If there's a mattress in there, I'm leaving." Tate laughed again. "There's no mattress." That hesitation was suspicious. There wasn't hesitation, Noah. There absolutely was. Tate shut the red pickup truck door and walked around the front of the vehicle toward Noah's side. Noah watched him approach carefully. "You're being dramatic," Tate said. "You kidnapped me before breakfast." "You had breakfast." "That's not the point." Tate opened Noah's passenger door before he could reach for it himself. The gesture was automatic. Effortless. Like Tate still operated on instincts built around Noah even after everything between them had fallen apart. That realization hit harder than Noah wanted it to. "You don't have to do that," Noah muttered as he climbed out. "Yes, I do." "No, you don't." Tate shut the door behind him gently. "I like taking care of you." The words were simple. Too simple. Noah looked away immediately. "You really need therapy," he muttered. "I've been to therapy." "Clearly not enough." Tate smiled faintly and started walking toward the far row of storage units. Noah reluctantly followed beside him. The facility was quiet except for distant traffic and the hum of air conditioning units somewhere overhead. Rows and rows of metal doors stretched in every direction. The place smelled faintly like dust, concrete, heat, and cardboard. "This is deeply unromantic," Noah informed him. Tate glanced sideways. "Who said it was romantic? You literally made a kiss joke 30 seconds ago." "That wasn't romance, that was harassment." Noah barked out a laugh before he could stop himself. Tate looked smug immediately. "Don't look proud of yourself." "You laughed." "I regret it already." "You still laughed." Noah shook his head and kept walking. Tate and Noah walked slowly down the final row of storage units, their footsteps echoing faintly against the concrete. The farther they got from the entrance, the quieter everything became. No passing cars. No voices. Just heat, metal doors, distant machinery humming somewhere overhead, and the strange pressure building in Noah's chest the closer they came to the corner unit. They reached one of the farthest units, near the back corner of the property. Tate stopped in front of it. Noah eyed the metal door suspiciously. "This feels illegal." "It's not illegal." "Why does every sentence out of your mouth sound guilty?" Tate reached into his pocket and pulled out a key. Noah's stomach tightened unexpectedly. Because suddenly whatever this was felt real. Important. Tate unlocked the unit slowly, then paused before opening it. Noah frowned. Why are you hesitating? Tate didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at Noah with an expression Noah couldn't fully read. Nervous. Which was terrifying because Tate Blue was never nervous. Finally, Tate spoke quietly. Because no one else has ever seen this. The metal door looked exactly like every other door in the facility, which somehow made Noah more uneasy. You keep staring at it like it's haunted, Tate said quietly. Noah folded his arms. You brought me to secret billionaire storage units after emotionally kidnapping me after breakfast. I think I'm allowed to be suspicious. Normally Tate would have smiled at that. This time he didn't. Instead, he stood very still in front of the lock, a cyan key resting loosely in his hand. Noah noticed immediately. Tate. No response. The sunlight hit the side of Tate's face, sharpening the tension in his expression. For the first time all morning, he didn't look teasing or smug or amused. He looked uncertain, which terrified Noah more than anything else had so far. Tate. Noah repeated carefully, what is this? Tate stared at the lock for another second before answering. Before we go inside, he said quietly, there's something I need to say. Noah's stomach tightened immediately. Because Tate's tone had changed completely. No sarcasm. No games. Just seriousness so heavy it almost felt physical. Noah tried to laugh it off anyway. You're acting like there's a dead body in there. Tate looked over at him. And didn't laugh. That made Noah's pulse spike. Tate. I did everything I could, Tate said slowly, to make sure you'd never have to know any of this. The words settled hard between them. Noah frowned. Know what? Tate ignored the question. If you walk through that door with me, he continued, voice calm but tight underneath, there's no going back. Noah stared at him. What does that mean? Tate finally looked him directly in the eye. It means once Pandora's box opens, he said quietly, you don't get to close it again. A long silence followed. The warm air suddenly felt colder. Noah let out a small disbelieving breath. You're being dramatic. No, Tate said immediately, I'm trying to warn you. That answer hit harder than Noah expected. He looked at the storage unit again. Then back at Tate. What's in there? Tate's grip tightened slightly around the key. Truth. Noah frowned deeper. About what? About me. The silence stretched again. Noah searched his face carefully now. Because whatever this was, Tate was genuinely afraid. Not afraid for himself. Afraid for Noah. And that realization unsettled him in a way he couldn't explain. You're scaring me a little, Noah admitted quietly. Tate nodded once, I know. Then maybe start explaining instead of talking like a movie villain. A faint, almost smile flickered across Tate's mouth before disappearing again. I'm serious. I know you are. Tate looked back toward the storage unit. There are some truths, he said softly, that don't leave you once you learn them. Noah crossed his arms tighter. Everybody has secrets. Not like this. The certainty in Tate's voice made Noah's heartbeat pick up again. Tate. If you walk through that door, Tate interrupted quietly, the life you have right now changes once I unlock the unit door. The wonderful, calm, peaceful, normal life you have, it's over, Noah. You have a right to know the cost before you go inside. Noah stared at him. What does that even mean? It means you won't be able to unknow me after this. That sentence lodged itself somewhere deep and uncomfortable. Noah looked away first. You're acting like you're secretly a serial killer. Tate let out a soft breath. I'm not. Drug lord. No. Cult leader. Tate actually huffed a small laugh at that. Noah. Well then give me something because right now you sound insane. Tate went quiet again. Then finally. You know the version of me everybody talks about. Noah frowned slightly. Which version? The billionaire, the rumors, the scandals, the stories people whisper about. Noah immediately thought about Anna, Dennis, Chloe, every strange conversation from the last few days. Tate continued before he could respond. Most people think they know who I am already, Tate said. They think I'm cruel, corrupt, dangerous, obsessive. Noah looked at him carefully, and Tate's eyes held his. They don't know the half of it. That should have sounded arrogant. Instead, it sounded exhausted. Noah's stomach twisted unexpectedly. You're doing this on purpose, he muttered. What? Making everything sound terrifying so I'll either run away or get curious enough to stay. Tate didn't deny it immediately. Which was answer enough. You are unbelievable, Noah said quietly. I know. Noah rubbed his forehead.